So my name is Rob Beatty. I am a faculty associate here at the Nelson Institute for Environmental Studies at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. The last, I'd say, 15 or 16 years, I've been a professor and teacher. And I've taught both basic environmental science classes and classes around social science of the environment. So weather and climate influences what I do because both of those, but particularly climate in the last 10 or 15 years, has been a really important part of environmental studies. And I've had to address students' concerns about the climate or their lack of concerns about the climate as a component of teaching environmental studies. In the early 2000s, when I would teach these large classes, environmental science classes, I would teach about climate change and global warming in a way that didn't necessarily have to address the current weather or climate. Because the students weren't thinking, what's the relationship between weather and climate and this thing called climate change? It wasn't in the news a lot. The link between weather and climate wasn't discussed as much. It was discussed in this kind of skeptical way. And so most of my job was to establish the sort of scientific or research basis for believing in climate change. Now I don't have to spend any time at all convincing most of my students that climate change is an actual issue that has widespread scientific support. But I do have to react to their natural belief that weird things going on with the weather are somehow related to climate change. So before, didn't ever have to talk about the weather. Now, climate change is still the constant, but now I have to integrate conversations about the weather with conservation about climate change and sort of back students away from trying to read climate into every changing weather event. I think the other thing, though, that really needs to be considered is this notion of adaptation, because I think that, you know, we've probably gone beyond the point of no return in terms of drastically affecting what the climate is going to look like, and the things we're doing now are going to have their impacts 50 and 100 years in the future. So I think that one thing that is going to change is I'm going to be talking a lot more, I'm not going to stop talking about mitigation, but I'm going to talk a lot more about adaptation and impacts, I think, than sort of mitigation. So that's how it's going to change.